Well, again, welcome to everyone to this fourth session of our 2015 AgrAbility Virtual National Training Workshop. My name is Paul Jones, for those who may not know me. Looks like we've got a couple of new names on our list this afternoon. The webinar for this afternoon is selecting a wheelchair for agricultural use. And our presenters today, Dee Jepson and Brittany Cowgill from Ohio State University and the Ohio AgrAbility Project. They will be giving the bulk of the presentation in just a minute as I go ahead and read through our instructions for those that may not have heard these before. If you're having any issues with your sound, please go to the audio menu at the top left of your screen and go to the computer audio settings. You can make adjustments there. We ask that you not activate your camera for bandwidth issues and other problems that might arise. So if you look at your name on the participant list and you have a camera icon to the right of it, we ask you to click on that so that your camera is not activated. If you need closed captioning, there is a closed captioning window, and you can click on the arrow to make that appear or disappear. You can do the same with any of the pods on the right-hand column, and you can also adjust the size of that entire column by dragging on the, clicking and dragging on the border between the column and the PowerPoint presentation. For questions concerning the presentation, you have two options. You may type your questions in the chat window, which is another one of those pods on the right-hand column. On the Send To box, you need to make sure you select Everyone, as that is your only option, but it does need to be selected. Type your message in the appropriate box, and then make sure you click on the Send button so that we actually get that chat. Also, during the question and answer period, if you would like to ask a question verbally, you may use the raised hand icon that is next to your name, and we will unmute your microphone so that you can ask that question. We have some questions of our own at the end. We have a few quick survey questions to get your feedback. We are recording the session, and we'll archive it on the website with the rest of our webinars. If you have any technical issues during the presentation, please use the chat window to let us know. If you're unable to do that, we are also monitoring the AgrAbility at agrability.org email address. Some potential issues: if you are hearing the sound but not seeing slides advanced in a reasonable time, just make sure your computer is still awake by clicking your mouse or enter key. If we happen to get disconnected with our presenters, please just hang on as we will reconnect as quickly as possible. And if you are disconnected as a participant, we recommend that you simply log in again. For anyone who might not be familiar with AgrAbility, we are a USDA-sponsored program, and we focus on issues of disability in agriculture. Every AgrAbility project around the country is a partnership between a land-grant university and at least one nonprofit disability services organization. There are currently 20 projects around the country, plus one national AgrAbility project, which is led at Purdue University by the Breaking New Ground Resource Center. Partners on our national project include Goodwill of the Finger Lakes, the Arthritis Foundation Heartland Region, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and Colorado State University. There's much more information about AgrAbility at www.agrability.org, along with all of our archived webinars, a variety of resources in PDF and other formats, and other information for your edification. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our Ohio AgrAbility partners. And again, they will do the presentation, and I will return during the polling and the question and answer session.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dee Jepson. I'm with the Ohio AgrAbility program. I'm the project director for the Ohio AgrAbility. And with me today is Brittany Cowgill. She was a PhD student who used our AgrAbility program for a lot of her dissertation research. And now she is part of our team, and she helps us as a consultant with some of our client issues as well as some of our education programs. So what you will see today is a direct product of Brittany's efforts on our team. And we have a new publication, and so that's what the publication that you see on the screen is available. And we have copies. They're not online yet, but we hope to have them online in the next couple weeks. And so that's why you have our agrability.osu.edu website if you'd ever like to download that or use it beyond the means of this webinar. So our objectives then within the webinar today would be to introduce to you this new bulletin and its contents. I understand that there are some state programs here, some staff that might have a use for it. And I also understand that there might be some of the farmer audiences and those that log in later and listen to the webinar that they might use it for their own use. So this hour session that we have with you is really highlighting what's in that publication. And so you can go follow along or use this webinar to augment that. So our objectives then are for you to understand some of the factors that exist on the farm and how they affect the wheelchair selection and the mobility of that person to get out and continue to have a productive life with a chair situation or another mobile device. And you'll see that we have other devices that we will highlight in this publication and on this webinar. And then also taking into consideration the user and the type of chores that they'll do and how that might affect which type of chair that they would choose. And I think what you'll see is, and those that are practicing, that maybe one chair is not the one size fits all, and that there will be different chairs for different purposes. And we do understand that, just like we have different devices to get around on the farm, whether it's a full-size pickup truck or a smaller pickup truck or a UTV, we do have different vehicles. And so sometimes you'll need different chairs. And then how does that come together and make the person productive? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Brittany. This is her specialty, and I'll let her guide you through the rest of the webinar.
Thank you, Dee. The first point I'd like to discuss when selecting a wheelchair is that of evaluating the environment. As the user, you have multiple environments you're going to be using the chair in, both in-home and on the farm, and just kind of looking at the whole spectrum of where you'll be using the chair and implications that has on the type of chair you want to select. Evaluating your environment includes looking at your needs and goals, both as an individual with a disability or impairment, and also your needs as a farmer. That includes your roles both on and off the farm, your physical and mental status, the progression of disease processes. If you have a progressive illness, you want to think about not only your needs today, but also your needs in the future and how that's going to impact the type of mobility device you want to select, as well as your views on obtaining a chair and how that may affect you psychosocially and the implications that can have for your level of independence. And also, if you use any other assistive technology devices, you also want to consider those in thinking about getting a wheelchair that is compatible with any assistive technology you may need now or also, again, in the future. Some points you want to consider is where will you be using the chair? Will you be using it inside, outside? What type of terrain will you be using the wheelchair on? Grass, dirt, concrete? This especially is important when you're considering power chairs, as battery life and the type of battery the chair has are heavily influenced by climate and can impact your overall mobility. Thinking about things in your home and also in things such as thresholds in barns and livestock pens, think about things like stairs, doorways, and then again, is this going to be a device you're going to be using 12 plus hours a day or just for a specific type of role or routine on the farm? And again, as I mentioned previously, thinking about other assistive technology, if you use something such as an augmentative communication device, making sure that you're able to access that device from your chair. And then also, if a caregiver will be involved in helping you with mobility in your chair, are they able to operate the chair effectively just as you would be? The next thing you want to look at is yourself, the user. So you want to look at what are your expectations for the chair, what is your goal in obtaining a wheelchair, and then also thinking about, again, those on-farm tasks and everyday self-care and ADL type of activities that you'll be completing from the chair. So what are your needs today as a farmer and also outside? What will your needs be in the future? How will your farming operation change in the future if you're thinking about downsizing or possibly upsizing your farm, taking those into consideration on the type of mobility device that you need for short distances, for long distances, to access, certain livestock areas or barns. And then also just think about how your farming operation is changing, and also, again, as your needs may change in the future if that same device can accommodate you. Usually wheelchair users are looking to keep their device at least 10 years plus, so that's an important consideration to think about. What types of mobility devices are available? There are numerous types of wheelchairs that are available, and today we're just going to highlight kind of the most common types, which are listed here. And we'll just briefly kind of run through some of the advantages and disadvantages of each, and then tell you just the features of each.
I'm sorry, I'm running the queue. We missed one.
The first type of chair we're going to talk about is an attendant propelled chair. Mainly these chairs can be used full-time, but they're not recommended for that use. They are propelled by a caregiver, not by the user. And they can be used as a substitute for a power chair if it's in repair, or also if someone is pretty mobile and can ambulate community distances, so by using something such as a cane or a walker, but maybe just need something if they're out and about, such as in, the grocery store or to the post office, and just need it for kind of a limited amount of time with a caregiver. The next type we're going to talk about is manual chairs. So manual chairs are best for individuals who have the strength and range of motion either with their upper extremity or lower extremity to operate the chair independently. They do offer the freedom to tilt or to pop a wheelie, as you may commonly think of it. That can be helpful in a farm environment for a lot of individuals who have thresholds and things to get over. They are easy to transport. Of the two types we're going to talk about today, the folding frame chairs are a lot more easier to transport than the rigid type chairs, or ones with a rigid frame. So folding chairs are heavier just due to the size of the frame and the weight of the chair. They do offer more features as far as adjusting things like footrests and leg rests. They're more commonly the type to have snap secure frames, again, for adjusting things such as leg rests and arm rests for positioning and mobility. And they also offer quick release wheels and adjustable front rigging. Rigid type chairs are lighter, so they offer improved energy efficiency and performance. The footrest is typically kind of one unit attached to the chair, not two separate footrests, so there isn't a lot of play there as far as adjusting it to the user. They do require custom ordering from a rehab technology supplier. They're not something you can typically just kind of get off the shelf. And again, they are better for users who need to be cautious of energy use just because of their lighter weight. Of manual chairs too, there's another class of chairs, lightweight chairs, which are those that are less than 40 pounds. They are intended for full-time use. Users best suited to these chairs are ones who have good core body strength and are able to sit upright with without any type of supports and are still able to operate the chair independently. A downfall of this type of chair is they are difficult to operate on rough terrain. Ultra lightweight chairs are those that are less than 25 pounds, and these usually are not intended for full-time use, but are often seen as things used for things like recreational use. When you think of wheelchair athletes and those competing in kind of performance-based or very specific events, those are the type of chairs used by a lot of individuals in those types of situations, so they're not really intended for full-time use. Standard weight chairs or standard weight manual chairs, the weight in some circumstances is good for those who do have some balance or stability issues. They do come with less custom options, and they are generally less expensive. This is the type of chair that anyone coming from like a rehab center looking to receive a chair under insurance benefits, whether that be through Medicare or another entity, this is usually the type of chair that that person would be able to receive under those benefits. So some other questions you may think of, there's quite a few to consider, is think about your strengths. Think about endurance, range of motion. Do you have the ability to not just operate the chair, for a couple hours? Can you get through your whole day and still be able to operate the chair independently? And if you are looking at something like an attendant propelled chair, does your caregiver have enough strength and the ability to propel the chair for you? And if you don't have the ability to operate a power or a manual chair or have a caregiver that can do so, you may want to think about getting a power chair. Power chairs, kind of a common feature of them is the wheels are separate from the seating system. They are very sturdy chairs and have a lot of weight to them. They are good for full-time users who, again, are not appropriate for a manual chair, and they do overall work pretty well both in indoor and outdoor environments. A downfall of power chairs is they do require a lot more maintenance than a manual chair. When thinking about the battery specifically of a power chair, there are two main types. The first is wet cell lead acid, and then also gel cell lead acid. Special consideration for agricultural users may be to think about the gel cell lead acid batteries. These batteries are a lot better when they're used outside frequently and exposed to weather elements. They're a lot more likely to be less damaged. And if they are damaged, they're a lot more easily repaired than using a wet cell lead acid, and don't damage the chair quite as much, so you wouldn't have to go back and get a whole new power chair. The battery can be easily replaced. And then also, if you are using a power chair, you want to think, definitely have a backup option. Depending on the manufacturer of your chair and the assistive technology company that you use to obtain the chair, some do offer rental programs. So if your chair breaks down, a lot of them will offer you a chair in the meantime to use, but some do not. So you may want to have a manual chair just kind of as a backup in case that were to happen. Other points to consider with power chairs are, do you as the user have the cognitive and visual perceptual ability to operate the chair safely and independently? They do require specialized transport requirements, so do you have a lift to get the chair into a vehicle? Do you have a ramp to get it into your home or barn? They also do have a large turning radius as compared to a scooter or a manual chair. So you want to take that into consideration if you have a small space in your barn or in your home where the chair may not be as easily maneuvered. And then again, thinking about your vehicle, there will be some implications for vehicle modifications if a power chair is best for you as well. A second type of power chair, it's not as common, are manual chairs with add-on power units. This feature can be engaged or disengaged, so when disengaged it just operates like a manual chair, but they do add weight to the chair. These are most commonly used when an individual is being evaluated for a chair to see if a power chair is best for them, and they already are currently using a manual chair, so it kind of works as like a test drive before a power chair is purchased. The next type of power chair are scooters. So these are not best suited for full-time use. They, again, are a good device for individuals who have limited community mobility, so used as a supplement to a cane or walker for farther treks out in the community or between barns. And they are a little bit better if someone was thinking about considering, a scooter over a power chair but doesn't need a power chair full-time. This would be a good option for them, as they're a lot less expensive, but they do come with a lot less custom features. They, just like a power chair, have a large turning radius. They can be difficult to operate indoors if it's a tiny cramped space, or outdoors, again, with things like traversing thresholds that may be in barns or pens, and also any uneven terrain scooters usually don't do very well on. Smart chairs are a relatively new concept. They're kind of still in the testing phases. They're most commonly used with individuals with several impairments who are not very high functioning. So someone that would be best suited for this type of chair could be someone with low vision problems, cognitive impairment, or musculoskeletal dysfunction. Recently, these chairs have been used a lot with veterans who come back with polytrauma, so thinking about kind of helping them to get around more independently. They're operated by using a set of sensors that attach to the base of the chair that almost kind of works as a robot, and they also have features like navigation and some pretty high-tech stuff. So you will be seeing a lot more of these, I think, in the future. And then again, the three main functions or kind of benefits of this chair is they do offer collision avoidance, and they also do have that navigation feature for individuals who aren't able to kind of maneuver through fixed or movable barriers. The chair will kind of do it for you. Standing chairs are pretty popular. They're a great option for individuals with spinal cord injury or multiple sclerosis. They're good at pressure relief. They offer improved environmental accessibility. A big kind of psychosocial benefit with them is the face-to-face communication they allow for the user. They are a lot more expensive than other wheelchair options. Some can be mobile in an upright position, and they are fairly large in size. The first type of standing wheelchair is a manual-driven manual lift. So it uses a hydraulic system with a pump to raise the user into a standing position, and then if the user wants to be mobile in that position, they're required to push themselves manually. And to keep the user upright, that's achieved by kind of a padded support across the chest for the user, and then also down below the knees to keep the user in a safe standing position. The next type of chair is a half-power standing chair. This chair is manually driven and a power lift. So again, the chair is manually driven, but when the person goes from a seated to a standing position, that is operated through a joystick system. So it just raises the user up without, again, that hydraulic system where the user would need to manually push themselves upright. And then the final type is a full power. So this is a power-driven power lift, where it's a power chair, in essence, that basically will just operate through a joystick system and push the user up into a standing upright position and then back down, and then functions in seated like a regular power chair would. The next topic we're going to discuss is fitting your chair. So some points you want to think about when looking at the overall fit of selecting a wheelchair. So one of the first things you want to think about is seat width. Kind of the rule I like to think about is the rule of twos when you look at best fit. So with seat width, you want to think about looking at the widest point across your hips and then adding 2 inches to either side. With seat depth, you want to look at, when you're seated in an upright position, looking from the back of the knee to where the chair starts, and there should at least be a 2-inch clearance there. There may need to be a little bit more, especially if you're a person who propels through foot propulsion, where you need more heel-to-toe clearance when you propel. Back height is calculated by when the person's seated in an upright position, looking at the tip of the scapula, which is kind of that bone on the back of your on your very back, and you're going to look at the very top of that and then subtract 1 to 3 inches from that. And then when you look at armrest, that's pretty simple. You just want your arms, when they're relaxed at your sides, to be in a 90-degree position at your elbow. Seating and positioning is our next topic, and we're going to go over on the different types of seating surfaces there are and the different types of wheelchairs we discussed. The first is your typical planar or flat surface. So this is what you see in most just typical manual off-the-shelf chairs. This is for those who don't need any postural support, are able to sit upright, and they are able to reposition themselves easily, so someone who has the ability to use their upper extremities pretty well to kind of lean side to side to allow for pressure relief. The next is pre-contoured, which is like a prefabricated seat. This gives added contact for stability, so as you can see in the picture here, there are some lateral supports and then also a support between the legs, again, just to achieve that upright 90-degree posture. Custom contoured, these type of seats have to be done with an assistive technology professional, where, as you can see in the bottom 2 pictures, they do a seat mapping and look at where your pressure points are, and then they'll custom make a seat for you around or accommodating for any type of deformity you may have or spinal abnormality, which is good for those who have either high or low muscle tone or decreased spinal support. Now we're going to talk about, related to seating and positioning, cushions. The first type of cushion is a foam cushion. These are pretty common. They're what you see in most power chairs or custom manual chairs. They are lightweight. They're easily sized. They are fairly inexpensive. They don't offer even pressure relief, and they do have to be replaced fairly often because they're not as durable as some others, and they can be hard to clean, which if you're an agriculture user, that may be an important point for you to consider. The next is gel-filled. These are self-contouring. They do offer good postural control and allow for good sitting balance. They can be heavy, and especially, again, for agricultural users, they are temperature sensitive. So if the person is using their chair outdoors a lot, if the gel on the cushion freezes, that's not going to be very good. So you want to definitely take that into consideration with this type of cushion. And they also are prone to leaks, so they do require maintenance pretty frequently. Air-filled cushions, they are lightweight. They do offer even pressure, and for those who are prone to things like pressure sores, they do reduce those shear forces between the surface of the chair and your sacrum, so that's good for anyone who may be prone to those type of sores. That's a huge advantage to this type of cushion. They aren't the best at postural control, so someone would need pretty good trunk support for this type of cushion. Leaking, again, is common in this type, and they do require pretty frequent maintenance due to that. Honeycomb cushions, they are lightweight, easy to clean, and are fairly low maintenance. They don't offer even pressure relief. They can be a little bit difficult to fit to the individual user. They are kind of a more generic type of cushion, and they do add pretty good thickness to the chair, which is a consideration when you're being fitted for the chair you want to add in, because when you're fitted, you may not have a cushion in the chair yet. So think about that as far as if the chair fits you now, if you add a cushion in the future and that raises you 1 to 2 inches higher, think about other adjustments that may need to be done to your chair because of adding that cushion. Custom contoured, we talked about these a little bit earlier. They do offer a high surface area coverage, again with the supports, lateral supports kind of at the sides of the chair and in the front. They also are good for those who are prone to pressure sores, and they offer good postural control. They are probably one of the most expensive type of cushions, and again, if you have a progressive illness where you're going to develop more severe pelvic or spinal deformities in the future, the cushion will have to be refitted to you again in the future, so you want to think about that. And they don't offer good ability for the user to weight shift because of the support, so you want to make sure that you as the user are able to weight shift independently if you choose this type of cushion. Alternating pressure systems, their advantage is they offer a scheduled pressure relief cycle. So a lot of the newer ones will almost have kind of a computer device that will schedule how or change the pressure in the cushion based on an everyday cycle of when you're in the chair. So it doesn't require a lot of user effort as far as that goes, and they are self-contouring to each user. They are also pretty expensive. Since it's alternating, it doesn't provide a even pressure relief system, and if you're someone who doesn't have good sitting tolerance or balance, this may not be the best cushion for you because of the fact that it's always going to kind of be changing the position that you're in. Water-filled cushions, these aren't as common anymore. They are self-contouring, they do offer good postural control, and they are fairly inexpensive. They do add a lot of weight to the chair, on average, usually about 2 to 3 pounds. They are prone to leaks, and again, just like the gel-filled cushions, they're also temperature sensitive. Next, we're going to talk about tires and how those affect the overall chair and the type of terrains that farmers may be using and the special considerations that you may want to keep in mind because of that. The first type of tire is pneumatic tires or air-filled. These are lightweight. They do offer good shock absorption, and since they are pretty lightweight, they can extend the life of the chair due to their durability, and they do require regular maintenance and upkeep, which can be seen as a disadvantage of this type. Semi-pneumatic tires or foam-filled tires, these are good as they don't require a lot of maintenance, and they provide also a lot of good cushioning and shock absorption. A disadvantage is they are more prone to wear out quicker than the pneumatic or air-filled tires. And the final type are solid rubber tires. These are seen more commonly on heavy-duty chairs or kind of specialized scooters. They're not seen on a lot of just your standard manual or power chairs as much. They do require little maintenance. They're also good at cushioning, and they also have a low rolling resistance, which makes them a little bit easier to operate in terrains such as gravel or in a field. A disadvantage to them, however, is they do add significant weight to the chair. Next, we're going to talk about some accessories. So once you find the chair that's best for you, there may be some other specialized needs you have that the chair can't fulfill. So you can always think about adding different accessories to the chair that can help improve your overall function and independence in the chair. The first are guards. These are used to block clothing from getting stuck in tires. They can also keep things like tools and ropes from getting stuck in tires. So if you're using the chair, in a workshop, it can help preventing things like rollovers or sliding in the chair. And they can also be put on armrests of the chair as well. So they can also, not just for the tire, but for armrests too. The next are anti-tip devices or anti-tippers. They just prevent the chair from tipping backwards, which can be good in things like fields or livestock pens, but also for those users who are using a manual wheelchair and, again, want that flexibility to get over things like thresholds, that individual would not be able to do that with the anti-tippers in place. So if you are that kind of user, this probably would not be a good device for you to use. Lap trays have a variety of uses. They are most commonly used for individuals who have limited upper extremity control, so perhaps an individual with a stroke who is hemiplegic on one side and needs to keep that arm up and out of the way in the chair so it doesn't get caught in the spokes of the wheelchair. They make them full lap trays, as you can see in this picture, and then also hemis, which would just be to one side or the other. They also can be useful for users with limited postural control or users with limited vision if they're doing fine motor type of tasks, such as working with tools or something small. If you're also a user with visual impairment, it can also be helpful to you just to get things up and closer to eye level. Restraining devices, they aren't used real commonly, but I did want to mention them because if you're a user who is prone to sliding forward in the chair and aren't able to kind of get around that by adjusting the tilt of the chair or the height, a restraining device may be appropriate for you. You want to make sure, if you are the user, that you have the ability to independently fasten and unfasten the restraint by yourself in case you were to have an emergency. You want to make sure you can get out of the chair if need be. They can also help individuals with neuromuscular impairment, again, to stay upright in a proper positioning in the chair. Recline and tilt options are also kind of an accessory seen on most manual and power chairs. They're great for individuals who need a change in their positioning in the chair, again, for things like pressure relief. Most attendant propel chairs offer this feature, and it can also be a semi-recline, which means the chair can go back about 45 degrees, or a full recline option where the chair would go back basically a whole 90 degrees. And again, these features are available on both manual and power chairs. And then just some final points you want to think about, and also where you can go to get a little bit more information about selecting a wheelchair for agricultural use. As you can see from this presentation, selecting a wheelchair in general and specifically for agricultural use is definitely a multi-step, multifaceted process. You want to make sure that you're consulting with a medical professional, whether that be a therapist or an assistive technology professional, to make sure that you're getting, the proper fit for your chair and it's going to best suit your needs both on and off the farm. As a user, you want to, again, think about yourself, thinking about your environment, and also think about the features of the chair. And then also think about things such as seating and positioning and the implications those have for your tolerance for sitting in the chair, and making sure that if you are a full-time user, that the seating system does allow for you to sit in the chair 12+ hours a day. Sure. If you'd like more information, some community resources where you can find more information would be the National AgrAbility Project, the Ohio AgrAbility Program, and then also RESNA, the Rehab Engineering and Assistive Technology Society of North America. And there you can also find assistive technology professionals in your area if that's what you're looking for or you're wanting help in selecting a mobility device for you.
This pretty much concludes what we had put together and what we wanted to highlight. I know that it's some of the basics of wheelchair use and selection, but it's a very important topic for those people that are trying to make those decisions. So at this point, we would like to turn this back over to the National AgrAbility Program so that they can continue, and we'll stay on if there are other questions or interactions. And we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dee and Brittany, for that comprehensive view. Very, very good detail on a lot of issues related to wheelchairs in agriculture. At this point, I'm going to do our quick poll questions. Cliff Raz will be preparing question and answer. If you've submitted a question into the chat window, we'll be collecting those, and if you would like to ask a question verbally, we will give you that opportunity also. First, for our polls, I need to take the ball back. Okay. There we go. All right. First question asks about your affiliation. We just would like to know if you're affiliated with an organization. And so if you could pick the best option of those on the list there. And as you select via the button on the left side, make sure you also click the Submit button, which is down at the bottom on the right. We may not be able to get your poll. Okay, I'll give you another couple seconds on that. Looks like most people have finished. Okay. So you can see the breakdown there. All right. Our next poll question asks about the information that we shared today. Could you please tell us if you found it to be usable and met your needs? Again, please remember to click the Submit button. I'll give you a couple more seconds on that. Okay. You can see the breakdown there. Save those results. And the next poll asks about the technology. Please let us know if things worked well for you on the technological aspect. If you had any specific problems, we'd appreciate knowing about that if you could communicate that through the chat window and let us know so we might be able to address those in the future. Okay, we'll give you another couple seconds there. All right, and looks like people got along pretty well with that. One more poll question. Asks, based on today's session, would you attend another session in this series? You could let us know your opinion on that. And again, please remember to hit the Submit button. We will have a poll at the end that allows you to make additional comments if you want to express anything in terms of either questions you didn't get answered or comments. We'll be collecting those too. Okay, we'll close this poll. And save the results. And at this point, I'm going to turn things over to Cliff Rass, who's going to moderate our question and answer time, and pass the ball to him so he can share any questions.
Paul. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen for the questions. To send questions, in order to get the text up here, you can do that in the chat area. If you don't see the chat area, click chat in the upper right. Make sure to select everyone in the drop-down, otherwise it won't send anything. If you want to ask via voice, just click the hand icon next to your name, and then I will take your questions in the order that they were asked. So if we don't get to your question, just be patient, we will. Okay, our first question is, why are gel cell lead acid batteries used rather than lithium ion?
Can you hear us, Cliff?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
I'll ask the question again. Why are gel cell lead acid batteries used rather than lithium ion?
I've actually never seen lithium ion batteries used in any of the newer chairs I've worked with. I don't know the exact answer. I would assume it's related to battery life of a lithium ion battery, but again, I could find out for you. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, the next question is, what is the approximate cost of smart chairs?
They're typically, at this point, since there are still in the testing phases, and they're not something that would be obviously covered, since it's such a specialty chair over with insurance or anything, they're anywhere from, I think the cheapest one I saw was around $75,000 and then well over $100,000.
The next question is the fact sheet on this topic available now?
It's a bulletin, and so I have it in my hand. It's a 21-page bulletin that reviews everything that we had here and a few extra little things. It is available now. We are trying to get it available online. So if anyone would like it, they would just need to send me an email, and I get them connected to that. It's just that we were ready with the webinar before the publication folks had it available online.
Okay, this next question is a long one, so I'm going to have to scroll. I work for Nebraska AgrAbility, currently working with T6 spinal cord injury. He is 28. He is getting a Bounder power chair with a weight of 495 pounds. He is also going to have a Bruno turn seat on the driver's side. Wondering if you have any idea of a crane system that will lift this in the back of his pickup truck, without placing a flatbed on his truck. Rod and myself have been in contact with many crane dealers in the state and out of state. That number one won't touch it because of the box in his truck, and secondly, due to liability. Any suggestions? Great presentation.
The most common type of crane systems I've seen have been just for manual chairs, especially the rigid type chairs that, don't have a weight of more than, 50 pounds probably at the most. For any type of chair I've seen used with, that's a power chair, or especially with, I would assume the weight of that chair, since it's a heavy-duty chair, I've only seen lift-type system used, not an actual crane-type system due to the weight of that chair. But they could be, available, I'm sure.
All right.
And it's unfortunate that the manufacturer doesn't offer a solution for that, because I could see that being a concern for a lot of people. So I'm sorry we can't help you, Nebraska, with an easy answer.
Okay, and so this is the last question. So unless there are any other questions submitted, this will be the last one. Are secondary musculoskeletal injuries a concern for wheelchair users?
Definitely. They're a huge concern, especially, if you're to look at a user that has a spinal cord injury and, has a manual chair that they're using their upper extremities constantly to propel themselves. A lot of those individuals are at risk of developing a lot of rotator cuff injuries, as well as some spinal deformities just because of that forward movement and, again, just wearing out those muscles. So that's a huge implication, whether it be for manual or power chair users, because I've also seen a lot of power chair users with things like arthritis develop some abnormalities from operating things, just such as a joystick constantly. So those definitely are a lot of implications that you need to think about with any type of chair, whether it be manual or power.
There was a comment that came in. It was check for truck lifts in the drilling business for oil or gas to lift in place chair. And then there was actually one more question submitted while you were giving an answer. And that question was, do you have any information or thoughts about adding hand cycle attachments to a manual wheelchair?
Most commonly, I've seen those type of attachments used on ultra lightweight or the lightweight chairs. I haven't seen them very commonly used on just your typical manual chair. I know there's some information on a website, and I'm blanking on the actual address right now, but it's from a wheelchair manufacturer specifically that provides those type of hand cycle attachments to individuals who already have a manual chair, and also just other kind of specialized accessories you can add. So there is definitely information out there, and I apologize for not being able to give you the website offhand.
Okay, and there was a suggestion, and I keep doing that. There was a suggestion, a link to go to is toolbox item, and that was placed in the chat to everybody as a reference. It's called the Outrider Wheelchair Hoist, and so you're welcome to click on that. It's in the chat box for everyone. You can click on that link and it will take you there. So there were no other questions or comments, so I will go ahead and turn it back over to Paul.
Well, Brittany and Dee, thank you again for your sharing today and for all those that attended. I did add Dee's email address into the chat window in case anyone wanted to contact her about getting that publication. She mentioned you could email, and that toolbox solution, I wanted to make sure that the Nebraska people knew about that. You may already, but it's a specific type of commercially made hoist to put wheelchairs in the back of pickup trucks. We have 2 more webinars in our 2015 Virtual National Training Workshop. Tomorrow morning, we'll be discussing secondary injuries. Our featured speaker will be Ed Bell, who will share some of his personal experiences with secondary injuries, and we'll also be discussing some tools that have been developed for helping people that work with people with disabilities to evaluate the risks of secondary injuries and technologies related to that. Our final webinar is scheduled for tomorrow at 3, and that is on carpal tunnel syndrome. So we hope you will take the chance to join us if you're able to, and that you will have a good rest of the day.